having a second cup of coffee this morning with Wes Cooper. And Wes is the chairman of Friends of the Sulphur Springs ISD.
Co-chairman, yes, sir, part of that leadership.
All right, fine.
Yes,
but obviously it has to do with the bond issue election, which is coming up Saturday, May 4th. But early voting has started, and we will talk about that before we're done. Just before we get into the bond election, people know you well around Sulphur Springs, but a little bit about your background and what brought you to be the chairman of the Friends of Sulphur Springs ISD.
Sure. So I have a long background in school and public education. My dad was a former superintendent. Yep. My grandmother, my great-grandmother, we come from a long line of teachers. I myself was a high school geometry teacher for a few years before I changed careers in 2011. When I did change careers, we were living in Commerce at the time, and we actually did live here in Sulphur Springs for 1 year. Dad taught here at the high school back in 1988. And so a lot of my life has been in the surrounding areas around Sulphur Springs. As we made that career change back in 2011, came here to Sulphur Springs, set up an office, and we just fell in love with the community and decided this is where we wanted to ultimately raise our kids and put down roots. And being a coach's kid, a teacher's kid, I bounced around a lot. And so we wanted to do things a little bit differently, and this is where we've decided to settle in.
I should say I know your dad well as former Commerce
Yes,
superintendent, and I knew him when he was a football player at East Texas
Yes, sir.
State and snapping the ball to Wade Wilson.
Yes, sir.
In those days. How many kids do you own?
I have two children, Clark, who turned 10 on the 18th of this month, and Caroline, who is 6.
And they are students in
Sulphur
Springs ISD.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's talk about the bond election. We've talked with Dr. Stieber several times about it. $157 million bond election. And just to summarize, 2 new schools, renovation of 3 other schools, all at the elementary
Yes, sir.
level. One thing I haven't really talked to her as much about is I wish I had it. What are the problems with the existing schools? And Wes, we just have about 5 or 6 minutes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll summarize as best as I can. The facilities are old, but not just old from an age standpoint. They're structurally just old buildings. They are inefficient. Things have changed so much in the last 70 years. Travis Elementary specifically was built in 1954. Just a quick perspective, the 3rd graders that were the first 3rd grade class in that building were born the year World War II ended. I mean, that's the time frame that we're talking about. So there's just a lot of inefficiencies because school was different in 1954. They were small community schools. Kids walked to school. They rode their bikes or they rode the bus. You know, parents weren't taking their kids to school. Traffic has become an issue. And the facilities, honestly, are just failing. We've got varmints that are caught on a routine basis in some of our hallways.
What kind of varmints?
Raccoons, possums.
Really?
We've got videos of it.
Wow.
My son jokes, he's at Sulphur Springs Elementary School. He's a 4th grader. Their count this year, I think, is 4. That's the number of raccoons they have trapped during the school day. And I just don't think people realize the aging of the facilities and just how inefficient they have become and how expensive they are to continue to operate. They are really putting a major dent in the maintenance and operations side of the district's budget, and are just, they've become cost prohibitive, honestly. So that is the main reason that the facilities need to be replaced in some timeline. The other component is the way we're structured in our K through 5 is also inefficient. We've got 4 campuses that are K through 3, and then everybody converges to one campus for 4th and 5th grade, and then they transition again in 6th grade. And so that's really an extra transition that's unnecessary, as well as because of standardized testing in the state of Texas, and we're not here to complain about that. We've got to follow the rules, and it's set up the way that it is. We lose between 3rd and 4th grade the advantages of showing growth on testing from students, because they are taking that first test on one campus and taking the next test on the other campus, and so neither campus is getting credit for the growth that students are showing on those tests. It's just kind of lost. And so moving to a K through 5 where kids are on the same campus from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade before moving over to the junior high and 6th. We just pick up so many more efficiencies doing it that way. And so that's really what's at the core, of this bond.
Mm-hmm. When people go to vote for a bond like this, of course, they have their own finances to take into consideration. And we are told that if this bond passes, that the tax increase, property tax increase on the average person paying property taxes, it's only $1.47 per year, which sounds fantastic. That's great, but how is that possible? Briefly.
Sure. One of the questions we've gotten, how do you get $1.47 per year increase per household and come up with $157 million? It's slightly misleading because you're actually only coming up with $7 million. And the reason I say that is the first $150 million is already covered by existing revenues coming in on that side of the budget. We have not passed a significant bond in Sulphur Springs in quite some time. And so we've actually been taking that revenue and paying off those other bonds early. We're ahead of schedule on that. So that first $150 million is actually already covered by existing revenue. So we could pass a $150 million bond and not have any tax increase whatsoever. So that tax increase is only covering that extra $7 million that's over and above that 157.
That's a great explanation. All right, we're running out of time, so let's talk about early voting, which early voting commences on April 22nd and continues through Tuesday, April 30th.
That's correct.
So tell us how that works and where people should go.
So all voting will be at the administration building there on Connolly Street. As you said, April 22nd through April 30th is early voting. It's from 8 to 5. Saturday and Sunday are the only exceptions to that. And so, get out there and vote. That is one thing we've been very adamant about. Supporting this bond is one thing, but moral support doesn't get it passed. You actually have to show up and cast your vote. We think this is a very good bond package that deserves people's vote.
Great. Wes, thanks for coming in, having, as we say, a second cup of coffee with us.
Sure.
Wes Cooper is the chairman of Friends of the Sulphur Springs ISD, and of course the bond election, Saturday, May 4th, but early voting April 22nd through the 30th. I'm John Mark Dempsey. This is KSST.